Hello, everybody. Alan Robson with you. I have worked on the radio, the television, live shows, pantomimes, books, bestsellers. I've done a lot of stuff, and it seems that Anna is interested enough in me to want to have a conversation. So that's what we're going to do. You see and I know part of the reason that we're talking is because of the pivot. And
Yeah.
I would never have pivoted if I didn't have any alternative. I didn't have a choice but to pivot.
But a lot of people were the same. If you think in lockdown, a lot of people only pivoted because they were forced into that position.
But you see, a show that I recently did that I've lost and will have to record again is a thing called The Great Reset. And it's the conspiracy theories. And I'm not big on believing conspiracy theories normally, but my whole existence was lost because of what other people have described as conspiracy theories. And I do genuinely believe there's something to it. I don't know how big a something it is. I don't even know who's behind it because it's beyond government. It's the people holding the strings behind government. And there's always been that elitist, rich 3 to 4% of the population that own 95% of the wealth. And it sounds freaky, and I wouldn't even mention it. I'm not the sort that goes off flying on fancy. But around the time that COVID was just beginning, the powers, all of the leading radio stations, all of them, there's not one that flew in the face of it. They all decided to get rid of talk shows over a period of probably 3 months. And I had this massive audience that it's a money-making machine for a radio station because everybody's there every night and they can't wait to get the next episode tomorrow. And I wonder what they're going to say about that. Oh, did you hear that last call? That'll cause a stir tomorrow. So you've got all this going on. Massive audience, incredible, successful, 80-odd national and international awards. Over the last 7 years, the 3 days after I was told that the show was coming off, I won the world's biggest radio award.
Wow.
For the 6th time in 8 years. Now, the New York Radio Award. So this is international, the best talk show in the world, 6 years out of 8. So I'm feeling untouchable. And then they call you in and they say, we're getting rid of the talk show. And you go,
But that can't have been a wise business decision to do that. It makes no sense.
right. The sense is, you have if you're closing down local radio, and in 3 weeks' time, the station I used to work for will have not a soul working on air. All of the content for a local radio station will come from Manchester or London. 95% of it already does, but the breakfast show's coming off, and the guys that do it, lovely people, they're on their way. And we always knew that would happen. Now, let's say that radio station made 5 million, cost $1 million. And you've got 80 of them up and down the country. 80 times 80 million off. One radio station covering the whole thing. You're saving an absolute fortune. Wow. You're losing all your local advertising, but you've got all your national advertising, which is enough. And all the radio stations took the talk shows off just at the time when I believe the public needed them the most, because everybody was frightened. Nobody knew what COVID was and all the rest of it. Now, so nobody has a sounding board anymore. Anywhere in the country, you've got 2 in London that are under control by 2 of the richest organisations in the world. And they're the only ones. And they're completely London-centric. So the entire of Great Britain hasn't got a sounding board anymore. You get people that will get somebody on for a quiz, but you'll not get them on for anything serious because they don't want to know. And it seems, and the conspiracy theory is that they want people not to spend cash anymore. That's happening. They don't want people to leave their house anymore because the roads are congested, and that's happening. 10 years ago, how many deliveries went outside your house across a day? None. But there's hundreds now. People are trapped at home. They don't have a say. They're completely rudderless. If somebody in a yellow jacket, and I remember this is Northumberland Street, Newcastle, walking down Northumberland Street one day, a guy in a yellow jacket shouted at me, he says, "What are you doing on that side of the pavement? Get over there."
What that
COVID.
Recently?
No, during COVID.
Yeah.
Come into the supermarket, walk down this side, don't come back up it. You want to come back there, you've got to go all the way. And you're going, whoa. And this, to me, is the perfect experiment, especially when you realize that 3 years before that, a lot of the health organizations were saying, if we have let's do a pretend pandemic. And they had it all mapped out. And then suddenly the pandemic happens. And then instead of people dying of flu, suddenly that year, well, for 2 years, people didn't die of flu. People died of COVID. Well, was that just flu?
Well, exactly.
It was all the offshoots of flu, and we all got progged, and we all had to go get and have to sign it. Can't go abroad unless you...
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to escape during COVID. I was looking for somewhere to live at the time, and I had thought of France. And I went to France half a dozen times. When on the news it says you can't travel anywhere. Yes, you could. But they were telling everybody you couldn't. And when you go to other countries during COVID, nobody gave a bucket. I was walking through France, nobody had a mask on. People were in street cafes having a lovely time. And I made a point of checking the place where I was to see, during the next 3 months, was there like an explosion of COVID? No. Health problems went down. And you're going, so the rabbit off is definitely there. Is it handy that we get injected while there's an epidemic? Yeah, understand it. But that might have been a flu injection. We're going down a rabbit hole. But the fact that it completely destroyed my life in the process by taking my career, then you think, was I just this tiny little nothing in the great scheme? And I genuinely believe that I was. I truly believe it with all my heart. And every now and then you'll see a sign and you go, you see, now they're doing this. And money's going to disappear. We're all going to be credit cards and telephone ting. It's going to be all that. And I'm a creature of exceeding age. And I quite like the idea of something solid in my pocket that I can say, if all else fails, I've got a £5 or a £10 or a £20 note.
No, I mean, I still feel like that as well. It's having,
something physical.
Yeah.
And it was like, being an anorak, and we've already established that I've always been that. When albums came out, I was working on the radio. I was getting sent 500 albums a month. I've got everything new. And I built up this amazing collection of everything on vinyl. And then I was told, oh, well, we're going to CD, none of that's worth it. And well, what do you do with it? You stick it in the attic or in the garage where it rots and ruins. And you try and replace all that. But I was on the radio. I was getting 600 CDs a month. So and then you talk to the company that has the act and say, I used to have these on vinyl, but I could really do, we'll send you them. Spoiled rotten. Toy shop for an anorak. So I built up this big collection. Then they say, well, you don't need any of them now. You're getting to get them all free. You don't need to go to but you see, it's all part of the thing. You don't need to go to the shops anymore.
Actually, you're missing one out, remember, because we went from record to tape and then to CD. That
is absolutely true. But it's all part of it again. Now, for music, you don't have to do that. Now they're saying a lot of the live concerts are going to stop, and
the AI concerts.
They're just going to be AI, or alternatively, you're going to get. You want to go and see Taylor Swift? Well, you'll not be able to do that, but there'll be a live simulcast in front of an invited audience in Carnegie Hall or wherever. That's not the same. But you see, gigs have changed. My whole joy, and I started in the kind of rocky world, and my heart's still absolutely there. You'd go to a gig and you'd jump around with all your friends and have a mad time, looking at things with your eyes and remembering it. When did you last go to a gig where some 5,000 people weren't holding bloody phones up, iPads?
Yeah. A lot of the time, yeah, they're actually physically watching it. They're not even watching the gig.
Watching the screen.
They're watching it through the screen.
So they'll never remember what it was really like.
Yeah.
They're not able to dance.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't work. And it's even to the point of, last time I was invited to a gig, it wasn't that long ago, I'm down the back with the other anoraks, some of the musicians and ex-members bands and stuff. I'm down the back, and we're just looking, and people in the middle of a gig taking a call, and you're going, technology has
taken away the connection.
Absolutely, but it's also kind of made us prisoner. We're a prisoner to the device instead of the device being just used as a tool.
Yeah. And
that's kind of tragic.
It is tragic. It very much is. And I think that's where we need to be really careful with our kids as well.
Oh, for sure.
Just, taking that away and getting them to connect with the real world and real people. So when I was younger, we'd go around and knock on people's doors and say, hey, you're going around to seek on such and such. And if they weren't home, they weren't home. But you didn't know until you got there.
Right.
Whereas there is none of that. My son has never, none of them have ever actually just walked around to someone's house and knocked on the door and said, is such and such in?
Right.
It doesn't happen anymore. And it's sad.
The interesting thing of all of that is, I remember, I'm from a generation where you went to somebody's house and sang for them.
Sang for them?
Yeah, the doors would never be closed. You would open the door and you would go, Terry and Billy. And then Terry and Billy would come from wherever their room is. Oh, hello, Alan. And come down the stairs. You'd go out and play. You sang for them. And everybody did it. Alan. Oh, there's me mate.
Is that real?
Yeah. It was the same.
I think it would be good if I sang for
when people joke about it, that's exactly how it was. And people crack more jokes about, people used to have their doors open and the next door neighbour would just walk in. They did.
We did have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the kid thing of singy people's, that was commonplace all over the area where I lived. It may differ from area to area.
Is it because they didn't have doorbells then?
Yeah, but they didn't want to disturb the family by ringing the doorbell, so they'd make the noise and the kids would just come down.
So it was a bit like when I used to throw stones at my friends' windows to get them out.
Same deal. Same deal, but less likely to smash a window, I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh man, brilliant. See, we still always talk about back in the day, and the music now. My kids are 11 and 18, and my stepson is 26 now. Right. They still listen to my music. They still listen to they love all the 80s stuff and all the stuff that's getting mixed into the stuff that my eldest is that my 18-year-old's listening to. I'm saying, that's such and such. That's 1980s. That's early 90s. It's like, what? We thought that this was just invented for us. It's not.
What we have to do is stop doing the date thing. I once went into, I wanted to find out what to be done with the kids. I wanted to go to a college, Newcastle University it was, go into the big catering area and just go around asking everybody what they're listening to. And one of them was listening to one of my old shows, which is great, because that's always good. Now, this isn't recent. This is when I was still on radio. But I wanted to find out because I wanted to play what they were listening to. And I went around. Now, this is, as I say, it's probably about 6, maybe 7 years ago. And half a dozen of them listening to AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Beach Boys. I had one listening to, like, hardcore trance dance. That's all right. Not one of them was listening to new music.
Wow.
Not one. Now, is that a problem? I think so. And it's because the radio stations were all playing the same music. Doesn't matter which station you listen to. They're all essentially playing the same. You might get a dance station that's playing dance, but they're still the same songs that all the other stations are playing, mixed in with what they're doing. But it's a very tight playlist, and it's always chosen by bullshit. They get 12 people from the radio station who choose what they like and put it on the station. And then they channel that to the next station. This is what we're playing. So they go, oh, they're playing that. We'll play that. So you end up with the same mulch. There's a million tremendous songs.
Which is obviously one of the reasons I've stopped listening to radio as much, because it's just not interesting anymore. And
and all you're going to do is press your iPad, put it on shuffle, rock on.
Yeah.
And anybody can do that. So when I was going around, people are reaching out for music from decades, 50 years before they were born, reaching out to find something that's interesting, that's different. And again, way back, I would hear an album by a band and I'd go, wow, I want everything and then you start collecting everything that they've ever had. And suddenly you've got this new dark secret that nobody else is listening to this band, but it's my band. And because of that, I learned about all these cool and crazy. Somebody told me years ago, if you like music, have the intelligence to look at every kind of music and be able to tell the difference between good and bad reggae, good and bad classical, good and bad jazz, good and bad funk. And I love music in every category, every single one. And I've learned that if I play that on radio, even though there's a song that's I ask you to listen to it. A madman made a record. I Put a Spell on You. His name was Screaming Jay Hawkins. He was a lunatic. I'm not being politically incorrect. He was seriously mentally ill. He made this song, I Put a Spell on You. And it oozes, F me. What the hell? It's random. There's a song by another singer Billie Holiday, called Strange Fruit, I beg your pardon. Strange Fruit was a song about hanging black people in the southern states. The fruit was the bodies of dead people hanging from trees. And it sends all the hair on the back of your neck up. You heard it? Everybody should hear some of these songs because they're like earth-shatteringly different to anything else that's there. The 70s, when I was growing up, you could go to the charts and you'd have reggae, pop, rock, jazz, funk, somebody reading a poem, somebody singing Amazing Grace a cappella. What's in the charts now? It's a loop, it's a loop, it's a loop, it's a loop.
Yes.
Let's have Dua Lipa. And then you get, let's have somebody that's from now singing I Will Always Love You, the dance mix. Because there's no great songs. Why is there no great songs? Because there's nowhere to play them on radio, because radio's 37 new tracks for the whole country. When you had 2,000 playlists, you had 2,000 chances of hearing something new that would make you go, I have to buy that. Nobody's buying anything because last time you were in a nightclub for a dance, the dances that you get up for are at least 10 to 20 year old.
Yeah.
Done. Not just for you, for everybody. Then they'll wait till Gala comes on with, Freed from Desire. Oh, let's have a bit of Chelsea down. Da, 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 da. They're old stuff.
Yeah.
Because of what's happened to radio, they've destroyed music. And now it's a million times harder to get stuff broken. Give you an example of how radio helps create a star. Now, whether you like him or whether you don't, James Blunt, massive he was. He still is massive to a degree, but the world's different now. But at the time that he became massive, I was playing a song called You're Beautiful. It became massive. He released it and nobody bought it. It died. And then I heard it and I thought, that's too good. It's actually It's a beautiful song. It's too good a song to not be a hit. So every night, every single night, so I'm going to play this until it's a hit. And I played it for about 4 months straight, every night. And all of a sudden, other radio stations around the periphery of our region, Scotland, Yorkshire, Cumbria, they're all saying, this track's had all of these plays. I'll play it. I'll play it. And it starts spreading. Right across the country it went. Everybody started playing it. And then for the next 6 to 8 weeks, they had to re-release the single because I was playing the old single, the same song. They had to re-release it. When they re-released it, it was number 1 for 7 weeks. And it became number 1 in pretty much every country on earth. But it all started in the Northeast.
Wow.
James Blunt realised that and sent me his gold disc. Because he knew that if somebody hadn't took a stand and said, this is going to be a hit. And
so
it was
it's more about
obviously
somebody else saying it's a hit rather than me going, look, this is so obviously you've got the digital online world now where you can just access the entire world from your bedroom. But that's you saying, look, I'm really good. You need to listen. But the beauty about radio is that it's somebody else is playing your song.
It's
somebody
a personal
else
recommendation.
Is saying that this is good. You need to listen to this.
Well, you see, if you're on radio, and I took it seriously. I wasn't just a talking head saying, coming up next. Then you name the 2 songs, then you play them. Going to the news in a moment. They don't talk to people as human beings. The people that are now nearly always celebrities who are jogging, Amanda Holden, Ronan Keating. No disrespect to them because I've met these people, they're nice. But they're not pro. They're not actually particularly good at what they do. They're good at being themselves, and people like them as themselves. And they chat about themselves. Well, we can. But talking about people, about what they care about, is a hugely different thing. And it's incredibly personal. When you're sitting at home and you've just gone through something like a bereavement, and there's somebody there who really understands and gives a shit about you, that doesn't exist anymore.
And this is what this right here is absolutely beautiful. What you're saying now is that the brand strategy techniques that people are teaching people, that people are paying money for, that people want to learn right now, you did it. You were doing it 20, 40 years ago before any of this even exists, before personal branding term was even a buzzword. You were doing this and you were doing exactly the principles without being taught. I don't know how, that's what I want to get into with you, but without somebody saying, right, you need to do this, you need to understand your audience, you were doing it regardless. You were one of the first people. I've learned so much from you in that sense. So like you've just said, the reason that you were so loved by so many people was because it wasn't about you, it was about your audience, and you understood your audience and you listened to them, and you wanted to, and the fact that you just said there that you went into university and you were trying to find out what are people listening to, and then I heard you say to somebody, I don't know whose podcast, it was another podcast you were on, somebody was interviewing you, and you were talking about how you went into the community and you went and spent time with the Sikh community, the other, you actually spend time with them. That is just exactly what people need to be doing now. And so it's about understanding your audience, listening to them, asking them questions and learning from it and actually applying that.
That whole thing came about because right at the very beginning when I was doing a rock show, because I got the rock show filling in for somebody, and I stole it and I made it mine. Did I try and walk over this guy? He wasn't very good. He had an hour, and it was called The Hot and Heavy Spot, and it was at midnight on a Saturday till 1 a.m. This was at a time when most radio stations had a classical show, a jazz show, a rock show, electronic show. Worst thing I've ever heard. Electronic show. Now, I mean, people may well be into electronic music, and that's fine. I quite like some of it. This guy wanted to be John Peel. Now, for those of you that don't know John Peel, a cult late night DJ. Not particularly rocky, but definitely cult and niche. And John Peel used to make a one-line remark, something snide, something, yeah. And he'd just leave it and he'd move on to the next thing and everybody would go, whoa, you hear what he said? This guy was trying to be the same without the talent. I'm not going to give his name, I could. And he deserves it, frankly. But I used to follow him on a Saturday night when I'd expanded the rock show to 4 hours. We'd already won tons of international awards. So I would come in after him. So in reality, I would rather have had somebody with ability to give me an audience to take over. I was starting with nothing with this guy. And the very last link before he went off, and I can remember the name of I can't remember the song, but I remember the band who you'll never have heard of. And he said, electronic, beep, beep, bop, yeah. And he went, that was Tav Falco and the Falcons. He can't sing, the band can't play, but what's that got to do with good music?
Oh.
And you kind of go, everything? Doesn't it? But anyway, doing all this kind of stuff, they wanted me to do, because I was having massive figures, they wanted me to do an early evening show, 7 o'clock till 10, playing new music. And I thought, that's great, I'll break new acts, because it's the job of a radio person to create new music and create new trends. If you're just there to play the same old shite, forget it, because it's boring, it's not interesting. And if you talk to people in the industry, a lot of them are hugely intelligent about music, but they're not allowed to choose the music, they're not allowed to play the music. At the very beginning, I'm going to pick a song or a band from the 60s, 70s, which is certainly before your time, The Drifters. Don't know whether you've ever heard them.
Yeah.
You're more than a number in my little red book. Down at the club. Everyone's an advert, right? They've all been adverts. Brilliant songs. They had 28 hits in the UK charts. But radio gets you to play one over and over and over and over again. It's the same. The Beatles had 6. Same songs over and over again. You never heard all those other amazing songs. Modern bands did play one. But because they were cool now, no matter how good or bad it was, you'd hear all of it. I'm sorry, Robbie, because I like Robbie, he's a nice lad. But Robbie got all of his songs on the radio, one after the other, and some of them were awful. He would admit it themselves, some of them were awful. But they'd all get played because he's currently it, because they've decided he's it. The public should decide who's
Exactly,
it.
yeah.
So I already knew that music was skewed even back then. The rock show, I picked everything. But I picked it on what people asked me to pick.
So you listened.
They wanted that, they get that. Wow,
Yeah.
I wanted this band, who are, in some cases, outrageously,
Yeah.
it's not a kind of music I particularly dig, but you get this. Alan Robson played. Pick any one of the 1,000 bands. He played this, I can't believe it. Never ever heard anything like that on the radio. That's why we should play it.
Yeah.
Because nobody else is doing it. So when I was told that I was doing this evening show, I quit my job where I was earning a fortune. I was already like senior executive. I had like about 120 people working for me. Lost all that money, went down to a fifth. I was going to grow again. 3 days before I was due to start doing the show, and I'd had it planned and plotted because I'm an anorak. Preparation is absolutely everything. I knew what the entire show sounded like before I sat down. Had it nailed. Nothing could change. It was going to be magnificent, and that's what it's going to be. And today, and it's awful to say, people that I know and like who worked in the industry would arrive 5 minutes before, go on, and they'd leave 5 minutes afterwards. I was at the radio station, and you talk to anybody that knows me, I was at that radio station at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was there till about 2:25 in the morning.
Wow.
That was my daily shift. And by the time I went on air, I'd interviewed people, I'd had sessions, I'd researched, I'd checked every news channel across the planet. I was going through all the local papers of Teesside, North Yorkshire, to make sure that I knew exactly what was happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get into that world, because they'd said, you're not doing your evening show anymore, you're now going to do a talk show, which I hated. I loathed talk shows, because there were always snotty people who thought they knew better and took the piss out of people for being who they were.
Yeah.
Because it was the same station that had James Whale. Now, with every respect to James, his style is to put people down. What he says goes. If you don't match with what he says, he'll put you down, he'll cut you off, and generate and have people laughing at somebody who had an opinion.
Okay. So again, you went in and you did it differently, though, didn't you?
Well, no, I was told to go in and slag people off and cut them off and do all of that. So I did a week. I did 1 week of this, and I was getting home loathed and hated. Not necessarily even by the audience, by me. Because somebody came on, they just wanted to talk about whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, yeah, useless. I mean, I can play that part if you want me to. And I thought, no, this is it's effed up. So I said to the boss, look, I'm going to step down. I hate what you've got me doing. I'm going to try and get back to where I was. And I probably wouldn't have been able. I'd have to start from scratch again. But I'm going to go back to my old world. And they said, well, why don't you try it your way? So I went on and listened to people. Mm-hmm. They know more than me, always. They're clever. They're funny. There's a side. People in the Northeast are crackers anyway, in the nicest possible way. There's a band, and I believe it's historical. It's this Celtic band from Ireland, because it used to be attached to Cumbria. There's this bond, Ireland, Scotland, some of the kind of the tips of Scandinavia around Germany to the top of France, to about Leeds. And then there's a different culture beyond Leeds. And that band of people are crackers. They're mad in the loveliest way. I'll give you an example. And I'd already by then spent a week with the Sikhs, the Chinese, the Hindus, Muslims, because we've got massive communities of people that don't listen to the radio because there's nobody on there that gives a monkey about them. We've had local BBC say, we'll give a half an hour show at a time when nobody listens, and that can be Asian hour. Mm-hmm. And it's twee, and it's not, I don't believe it's sincere. Now, for the guy doing it, I'm sure he's having a lovely time. And there'll be people within his community, his friends usually, that'll say, that's a great show. How do you hit them all? Well, you go and meet them and you shake their hand and you spend some time and you find out what they eat, what they do for fun, how they treat their kids.
I love this. That's exactly what everybody needs to start doing when it comes to their audience. And as soon as you start doing that, as soon as you start learning about them, even to, like you say, the little details, the little things that they really care about, or the little things that knock them, that's...
And then you go on radio and you say, does this upset you too, as much as... And it does. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what colour you are. And I've fought racism my whole life. I've been stabbed. I've been attacked dozens of times. Because you're a black lover. They use worse words than that. Prejudice. About 25 years before anybody had heard of transgender, I was saying there's people here who are born in the wrong body. Mm-hmm. If you explain it to people, they understand. Instead, the media vilify. They're not like us. They're transforming children. They're paedophiles. And the reality is that if you look at who are the worst paedophiles, and there's no nice way of dressing it up, they're people with power over children, priests, vicars, scout leaders, youth leaders, da-di-da. That's the group that commit child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
How many transgender people? It would be like 0.00003%. It's not the nature of that subgroup. I went to a university to meet the binary, what I call the binary finery. All of these different people that have different views of themselves and their friends. And that's fine. If you want to be whatever you want to be, get on with it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can say, the start point is, we love you. Great. But people don't. They do the reverse. Hate it.
Me too, yeah.
Hate it. And it'll not change. It won't change. Nah.
You think it'll never change?
No. Because I talked about this conspiracy, this great conspiracy. The world that they come from is control. And the way that people have always controlled, and if you look back at the lessons of, you could argue now, Trump, Nazi Germany, the Italian fascists, the Russians, particularly under Stalin. If you look at history, because history teaches you lessons, if you look back at all of those times, they won by dividing people. In Germany, the Jews you'd be rich if it wasn't for them Jews. Say that 1,000 times and you've got a country hating Jews. In Britain, we hated Jews. Mm-hmm. In a castle in York, the entire Jewish community was... Have you been to York? You must have been to York.
Yeah.
Did you ever see a castle on top of a hill?
Yes.
It's very famous in York. That castle, the Jews raced to the castle because they were being persecuted. And they were persuaded to come out. And when they opened the gates, everybody poured in and massacred them. It was happening here a few hundred years ago. So I know how easy it is to pick a subgroup, focus on it, lie about it, and to generate hate. Mm-hmm. It's the easiest thing in the world.
It's probably easier, would you say, to generate hate than it is to generate love. Positivity around something.
100%. If you love people, you're weak. Mm-hmm. You love them. Why? What have they ever done for you? Mm. And it's not about that. You see, the idea of being successful yourself, and I wanted to be successful, but I wasn't saying I'm going to put myself in front of everyone for people will love me. You have to earn it. Mm-hmm. So if you did the things that I did and you go out to the community, you meet people, and you obviously like them, and they obviously like you, then you've won. Because when you get home, they'll say, when's he on the radio? I'll have a listen to him. Or I did a lot of TV. I did a TV show doing the same thing, trying to help people. They offered me a talk show, and I says, I'll only do it if I can go out to where the people are rather than bring them in, because then you only get a certain type of person that is attracted to TV. You want them all. And I mentioned that I was going to tell you like a dumb story about the value of the individual, whoever it is, anybody listening to this, the individual. We had this guy, his name was David. He lived in Seaham. He was a poet. He said he was a poet. He wasn't no poet. But everybody in Seaham called him David the Poet. Now this guy would come on the show, and I only allowed one person per call per week so that everybody had a chance to get on. Because if it's the same people, if you only need 30 people a night, say, it's the same people every night. No, give everybody a chance. So I changed the rules. So once a week, usually on a Thursday night, this guy would come on. Alan, I've got a new poem for you. Go on, David. And people would send messages and ring in saying, get him off. He's awful. He's terrible. Why are you listening to this crap? It was important to him. But his poems, he believed that as long as the last word was the same as the word at the end of the sentence before it, that's a poem. So you got stuff like this. I went to see him today. I met Mrs. Wilkinson. She was going to the chip shop. Her brother Billy's ill. And I let her go on her way. And it's and that's the right. And what I started saying to people is, if you don't like him, just try and guess his rhyme. So people at home would be going, and he'd go, I managed to get the stuff from B&Q, and I walked to the car and I put it in my boot. And then all of a sudden the screen would light up and people would be going, foot, gut, smut, whatever it was. Silly, funny. He read his poem. He went off feeling amazing. I mean, you could tell he was, I'm so proud. Give him it.
And he's here today.
No, but give him it. Let him have the win.
Yeah.
No reason why not to. Now, he'd been on 2 years. 2 years of ringing. That's loyal. 2 years. And then one day, after I was talking to him on the phone, he did his poem, and I said, well, thank you, David. Thanks very much. We've got other callers now. He says, Alan, before you go, I just thought I'd tell you. Back in 1942 and 1943, I was a paratrooper for the British Army.
Oh my God.
And you go, he's taking the mickey here. And he says, you know, there's a film called A Bridge Too Far. I don't know whether you've heard of it. So it's on the telly a lot. It's where they tried to capture all the bridges before D-Day so that when the D-Day landing happened, they could get quicker through the countries, and they wanted to defend the bridges. And one of the bridges was too far, and they managed to get all the others, but they didn't get that one. And he said, I was on that mission, and my glider landed, and there was 40 of us on the glider, and we landed on bad ground, boggy ground, and 38 of the people on board were killed. And there was just me and my sergeant, and we had to make our way here, and we had to try and find someone else, and we were hand-to-hand fighting, and I had to kill a man with a knife for the first time in my life, and I had my machine gun with me, and I was...
What a story to tell, which he would never have done had you not...
Correct. So,
wow.
Even the person that has the daftest story has a tale to tell. And of course, immediately after
really
that...
quite emotional listening to that.
But immediately after that, he goes back to type. So this is the same man with the same emotions. And he goes, oh, and before I go, just want to tell you, I had a right problem last night. So it was in my nature to say, if you got a problem, well, tell us about it, if I can help. Oh, you cannot help, Alan. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, I was lying in bed last night and my piles started playing up really bad. And you go, because you cannot help yourself, you kind of go. And he says, I didn't have any choice, I had to get up. I had to go into the cupboard and put some preparation up there. So I went to the cupboard, I dropped my boxers, I covered my hand with a preparation, and I'm thinking, I already got too much of this. I know where it's, and I know where it's going. And he says, and I swathed it on. I swathed it. And he said, Alan, I was screaming like a girl. Because it wasn't preparation H, it was toothpaste. So, but you see the circle. There is, you get that amazing insight into somebody's life. And then he goes back to type again.
And yet all he would have talked about were those...
Just the poem and gone. You'd never have heard it unless you get people to trust you with their life.
Mm-hmm. Trust.
That's what it is.
Trust.
It's trust every time.
But and you were only able to gain that amount of trust with your audience because you genuinely cared, because you took the time to learn about them and to listen to them and understand what it is that they wanted, what it is that they cared about, what they were scared of, all of these things. But you took the time and you genuinely cared yourself.
Well, we did things that would now be considered criminal. We did pursue we did pursue criminal behaviour, but we did. There was a woman in Blythe. Some kids had started squatting in the house next door that was empty, and they were selling drugs. And all the way through the night, people were stopping at the door, coming, putting money through the door and getting a little packet. And she came on to me and she said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm 82 and I cannot walk very well. And there's horrible people and I'm shouted at and sworn at and they've broken me windows and horrible. And I had a word with a few people off the door of a place that I was doing regular gigs at. And I said, can we not just go up and just move them out? And he says, well, you can't do that. There's laws and stuff. I said, but they're not caring about the law, are they? Can we not go up? And about 9 of the lads went up. And I was there, but I wasn't in, but I was there. And they went in and they got a hold of everybody. They'd given them a smack, took everything that they had and locked the door up and nailed it all shut.
Brilliant. Job done.
Problem solved. That's illegal. We did another illegal one. Newcastle Hoppings was going to be closed down because a group of, at the time, we go back to skinheads, can you believe? It's early 80s. Gang of skinheads had gone through there, pinching everything, robbing everything. Now, travellers are a hard bunch of people. You don't mess with the travellers. But they were going to shut it down because... And I had a word with the Hells Angels. And I said, you hate skinheads. Why don't you just one day start at one side of the moor and just drive through the moor? And they drove through the moor, occasionally assaulting somebody on the way. And they never went back. But it's just, probably there was one that was a lot worse than that. And this is how you can find, if you're in an audience and you live in a place that's not got a good reputation, where I was born, West End, Newcastle, the Meadowell riots, front page of every newspaper, and it all said, riots in Newcastle. It was Meadowell. Because the newspaper said riots in Newcastle, there was a small riot in Benwell. But it wouldn't have happened if they hadn't said it. Because that Meadowell riot, people were bussed in. People had booked buses weeks in advance. This wasn't a spontaneous anything. That was all bullshit. So, during the night of Meadowell, somebody rings in and says, there's somebody driven a car onto my lawn and it's on fire. What do I do? I've rang the police. They said we can't get onto the estate. And I'm saying, well, get out the house, grab your family, go to, Well, I can't leave because there's gangs of people with sticks hitting anybody that's on the... Another woman, I'm pregnant. I live in the house next door to that woman who's just been on. My hedge is on fire now. My front porch is burning.
Bloody hell.
I'm pregnant. I'm 8.5 months. I could go at any time. All this was happening and I was trying to help guide the police. And I said, if the police are listening, you go down this road, you go down that road. There's a fire engine being trapped and there's people breaking it. I knew everything that was happening. I had a plan on my desk. I'd drawn one where all the streets were. And I was saying, but you can go up Anderson Avenue, you can turn left. You can go. So I was trying to help in whatever way I could. And when that pregnant woman rang back to say, I think the baby's coming. You cannot not. So I rang a lot of my bigger, many of them hairy people. Some of them, it was strange because it was hairy people, the bigger, chunkier, hairier people, and doormen, club doormen. And I said, how many can you get in 20 minutes? Oh, but 15. Get them. I'll send a van. I go on air, I need a van. Pizza company, got a van. They went to Meadowell, knacked everybody, pushed through the police, knacked everybody, got the woman in the van, got her out to the hospital, Rake Lane, in fact. Baby born, happy days. Now, because I was there and because I knew the place and I knew the people, they trusted me with doing something that the people of the Ridges would never do, talk to the police. They wouldn't tell them, but they tell me. So I could make some kind of difference. Then, a year later, I get contacted by somebody on Meadowell, and they said, Alan, we'd like you to come and reopen because they burnt the leisure centre there. I don't know how much you can remember of it. They burnt the leisure centre, they bricked shops, and looted everything. It was horrible. And they said, we're going to reopen Meadowell in the community centre, and we'd love you to come and cut the ribbon. Now, I've been to a lot of gigs in bad areas, and they're the nicest people in the north. Mm. Once did a charity gig in Gosforth High Street, poshies. We made like 200 quid. We went to Scotswood, where everybody's on the cheeks of their arse, and we made 2009. Kind of tells you something. But anyway, Meadowell, I think this is great. The rebirth of a place for people who have it tough. Let's give them some razzle dazzle. Now, I had a team of dancers at the time called the Bladettes, and it was as you do. So, I had a team of dancers, and whenever we worked live, and they were great. I mean, proper, fully skilled, the real business. And we used them in pantos, and we travelled the world doing rock shows with them. They were great. And so I just said, are you coming? They said, absolutely. So I said, we'll get some footballers. We'll get some local celebs, and we'll go and do a full day of it. I contacted every local celeb, and I could really name a lot of names here. Meadowell, we're not going there. Singers, we're not going there. Footballers, definitely not. We're not putting our client out, you know. It ended up being me and the girls. We did the game. We got there, they had a stage, and they had, you know those metal protective barriers that all link together? Mm. You see them at gigs at Great Northern. They had about a 20 feet space from the stage to the first barrier. Then they had another barrier 10 feet beyond that. What does that say? Treat people like animals. Mm-hmm. So I said, get it all out. Take it all away. I want them here, right in front of me. Alan, you just need one cracker. You just need one cracker. Now, while I was doing this, there's a bank, the community centres here, there's a bank, like a grassy bank, to somebody's back garden. On this bank, there's about 40 kids in ski masks with lumps of wood and stuff. And the police are saying, we don't want a big police presence, so we're like 3 streets away in 4 riot vans with all the gear. And I said, tell them to get off the estate altogether. They won't. We'll tell them to move back even further. But Alan, you don't have any security at all. You've got like 6 girls. You've got to keep the girls safe. And I said, I don't believe for one second any of these would hurt a girl. Somebody chucked a bit of pasty. One of these kids chucked a lump of pasty.
Sorry, it had to be pasty though, didn't it?
Because I saw it coming. And I jumped up. And I didn't get it all in my mouth, but I got a bit. I jumped up and I went, oh, you want to feed me now? I knew I was right to come today. And I started having this party with the good people. I started having a party. And I took a load of giveaways, because back then I got lots of free blag. And I collected it till I had a gig, and then I gave it to people. So I'm dishing out all these things. The people that have the best fun are going to go away with carrier bags full of goodies. And there were good prizes, you know, like the biggest albums of the week, the top hits, T-shirts, sweatshirts, dishing it all out. And all these kids are going, we're up here looking like we're hard. But they're getting all the stuff. So you kept seeing one of them just kind of go, and then they'd go down. And you'd see that, you'd notice it, and you'd give them something, and then their mate would go, Gary's just got a sweatshirt. By the end of the day, the whole place, magic, fireworks, dancing, flashy lights. I declare this open, look after it. And they all go, yeah. And you go away. As opposed to nobody wanting to go.
So it just goes to show how you treat people. It's how they treat you back in return. It's all about how you perceive them and how you...
It's also good stagecraft. Because whenever I got anyone that was an issue in a crowd, and we all have had that, I'd get them up on stage immediately, no matter how mouthy, and come into my world and say that. You'd have the whole crowd looking up at them. They're very, very different.
Yeah.
And I've had some animals up on stage, and by the end of the gig, they love me.
They always come around.
You're treating them with respect.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, I want to be an anarchist. Come up here and be an anarchist then. Why not?
Alan, you were talking about how you can get over quite a few barriers, as in when you're on radio, nobody can see it, especially back in the day. A lot of people didn't know what you looked like because you're just a voice on the radio.
Yeah.
And so
Good.
you could overcome some of the scary things that we are having to do in this era, where we can't hide from video. We have to do the video whether we want to or not. And it's scary and it's awful, and I'm still scared of it now. But we're trying to create something where we help people actually to step into the thing that they've been wanting to do for so long, but they're too scared because they're too scared of judgment, trolls, all of those things.
Think about trolls though, just for a second. Mm-hmm. In my life, I've had, as I say, I've been attacked a lot. I've been stabbed a few times. I've been beaten up and left bleeding on the street.
Oh my God.
I've broken ribs. My nose has been broken 5 times. It's roughly central as we speak. There's a lot of negative. Think about getting a turd in a shoebox about once a month for 15 to 20 years. People going online, if you typed in my name at one point, the story came up, he threw his wife downstairs, he's a bastard. That was the heading.
Really?
Yeah. I never did it. And it doesn't matter because trolls don't care about the truth.
Yeah.
Trolling then was different. Now it's in your face. Now it's in your home.
Yes.
That's a very different thing. It was on a screen for me in a radio station. Switch it off. Click. Not a big deal. It's harder now. And people are, I think, a good 20 times more critical because they can be. I'm in my bedroom.
Yeah.
It's evil. But if you pay attention to these people, they win every time. I mean, even if you, and I say this, and I was feeling this 2 days ago, somebody said something awful in. And the older I get, the more sensitive I become to criticism. Because back in the day, I did have my wife would call it arrogance. And I suppose it was. But she's rarely wrong, she tells me. But I had this kind of, once this guy said, I've written a great rhyme about you on the toilet door of the little chef on the way to Carlisle. And I went, oh, that's great. 2 days later, somebody went to the little chef, unscrewed the door, put it in his van, and delivered it to the radio station. And he said, and it was a rhyme like, Alan Robson. And he did mention that I'd been on a punt. I hadn't. But you can see where the rhyme was going. And he'd written a note that he'd stuck on with sellotape. The guy who delivered it, I agree with him, you are a... You get into the radio station, Alan, I've got something for you. I mean, so when you think about it, that's not a great way to start your day. And also because everybody else then goes and looks at, all your friends go and look at the door and they call you, So, but to me, I decided that if I was going to, and this is something that I know used to be like a slag against women, because people have always slagged women and continue to this day. And it was, she wouldn't let me have sex. It's a phrase that means she wouldn't let me have sex. If she wasn't going all the way, why did she take the journey in the first place? Oh. You know, the kind of, it's creepy kind of.
Yeah.
but I actually agree with it. Not in those terms, not to do with women. If you're going to go on a journey, go all the way. And I've been lucky enough to do a lot of telly abroad and learn about people not just from my little heartland. And the only people that have ever beaten me up, betrayed me, cheated, were cruel, were white people living around me. It's not ever been anybody of colour at all. And I went to New Orleans and I was doing a big TV show there, but I was also doing Night Owls. I would only do the TV show provided I could still keep doing the radio show at the night time. And they gave me big telly with $1 million a show, and we were doing something like 6 in a week. And I had a driver and a limo and all of the fancy Nancy. And the guy that was driving for me was a black guy, and Leon. And I got on really well with him. And I said, "Can I not sit up the front with you?" And he said, "Yeah, of course you can." So I sat up in the front. We'd have a bit of crack every time. And I looked forward to seeing him. And I liked the thing. He looked forward to say, 15 years after that, I was still sending him blues albums that I got sent. So, he was a nice guy. And about 3 days in, he said, "Do you want to come and meet me family?" And you go to this run-down, horrible hovel of a place, bless them. But they were happy and kind people. And they say, "Oh, white people don't come down here because they think they'll be mugged." And people were coming out. I was like, "Ooh, there's a look." And people were coming out, but they were being lovely. And they said, "Do you want to come to the club? You're filming until," and it was about something like 4 o'clock in the morning, ridiculous times. He says, "What we'll do is we finish at 2:30, but we'll wait for you. And you can come and have an hour with us, and we'll sing for you, and we'll do and we got some dancing and things." And I went, "Who keeps a club open?" I went. Everybody loved us. Not for any reason. Not because they wanted anything. Not because I could do anything for them. Here's some food. Sit yourself down. There's me daughter. There's me. Oh, me Auntie Mary, who had a canary. And we know where she kept it. But I met everybody. The very next day, I was doing the radio show, and they got me a little mini studio, not even as half the size of this, and it was just a recording desk and a microphone and like a guest microphone. And about 10 minutes into the show, the guy behind there said, "Alan, can you just, when's your next break?" And I did that because I was talking like a listener, and I had a break in 5 minutes. The break came, and during the break they said, "There's somebody here to see you." And it was one of the guys from, and it's called, in New Orleans, it's the New Orleans Zulu Club. And it was the guy from the Zulu Club. And he brought 114 people in dicky bow ties and full suits to sing gospel. No music. We had one mic. I had to stand outside like that. And it was the most magnificent thing.
I can imagine. My God.
They're all doing, it's New Orleans. It's like sizzling. And they're all doing that Louis Armstrong thing where with a hanky. And they're out in the sun and they're giving up work.
Phenomenal. I've been to New Orleans and Bourbon Street and just
Amazing
and it's I've never heard. I mean, buskers on the street singing, playing sax.
They'd be on stage here.
Oh, genuine. I mean, in tears. You walk around just so moved by how incredible. You've never heard music like it in your life.
Well, it's the same as everything that I've done. Treat people like they should be treated. And you get the benefit of that. And for me, it was, I suppose, fail. Now I'm saying, you learn a lesson. If you're ever up, you will be down. And once I lost my job, about 8 months in, and I'm lost, trying to pivot, wondering if any of the little things that I'd started would take off so that I could survive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not just live, it's eat.
Yeah.
And this guy came up to me and went, "Didn't you used to be Alan Robson?" You laugh, but it's not funny. I'd spent 50 years, almost about 49 years.
I guess somebody's saying, didn't you used to be?
Didn't you used to be Alan Robson? Then you go, oh, shit, what good did I do?
A hell of a lot, though.
Doesn't feel it.
It's and it's unbelievable that you don't feel that
No,
when
don't feel
that's all we feel.
It's bittersweet. Towards the end, they're saying, wherever you go, we'll be there for you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they just weren't. And I get it. You know, I love Faulty Towers. It's all these years on. Am I still crazy about it? Enough to buy something?
Mm-hmm.
Enough to go somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. I loved it. My favourite band, would I go and see them now? Absolutely. Once a year.
Mm.
But I wouldn't help support them every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's normal. And hey, I did very well out of it at the time. I've travelled the world to places that I would never have got. I've done, if you're looking at bucket lists, little bucket lists, I've bungee jumped. I've done the world's longest zip wire. I've, just little things. I've visited Disney World, which is amazing. I've done a lot of I've been to countries that you wouldn't normally go. I've been to the Caribbean more than most people would ever do. I've made a TV show in Hollywood. I've been the #1 TV show network across America. I've won all these awards. And when you get to the end of it, none of it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're on your own. You're invisible, like everyone else. And that's probably the way it should be.
Yeah.
It's not ever going to be anybody's time forever. And I'm not daft enough to think that it is. I'm just doing the best I can now. That's all you can do.
But what you're doing now, you have a pretty huge following doing what you're doing now.
Yes, and I don't think that I'm dissing them at all, because I'm not, because the people that are with me are with me.
Yeah.
And they're loyal and they're steadfast and they're true. All the things that from the very first day I started, after that daft week, I would go on radio and I'd say, the things that are important for you when it comes to friends and even your own family is to be steadfast, immovable, honest, true. And a lot of my people have been. I mean, genuinely 98% haven't. They've just, well, that's not on now, I'll go to the next thing. And that's in our nature. It's the nature of the beast. And I can't criticise people for that. That's just how it is. But it has been, I did a few shows at the Hard Rock Cafe, half a dozen. And I once wanted to be stand-up and I was awful at it. I can still, as you can tell, I can still talk, but stand-up was never really what I did. And the best show we did was when people just asked me questions. And they asked the most awful questions, but I'd still give them an answer.
Yeah.
Are you gay? Have you ever had anal sex? Yeah, on stage, and you kind of go, see me later. You got no idea. But it was the best show I did because it was just honest. Tell me about this thing that happened in this time. The one guy came up and said, I used to be a supporter of the IRA, and they should have killed you when they had the chance. And you go, well, they didn't, and I'm still here, then, aren't I? And I had a run-in with them. You are a waif. You are a much younger person. Can you remember an IRA atrocity called Enniskillen. It was a Remembrance Day parade, and a bomb went off and killed a lot of innocent people. I was on air around the time, and I was slagging the IRA off every day, giving them serious jip. And Enniskillen had just happened, so I went into absolute overdrive. How can anybody that's supposed to be based on religion, these people aren't religious, the Pope's even told them to lay down their guns, and they're not doing it, so don't fall for that bull. And I was really getting stuck in. And around that time, if you were a member of the IRA and you rang the police or a newspaper, you would give a code word so that they could then check, is this the code word? It really is the IRA. So this guy came onto my switchboard operator, a young lady, and said, we're from the IRA. Tell Alan that in 10 days' time, we're going to kill him. And we contacted the police, thinking it's some random, because I've had a lot of death threats. And it's funny because the people who love the most get the most death threats. I don't know how that works, but anyway. Contacted the police expecting it not to be anything, and they said, no, that's the right word. And he says, what are you doing in 10 days' time? And I looked, 10 days' time was a Saturday. I was doing, handing over a cheque for charity in the morning, because a lot of people think you only do the radio stuff. You're always busy. I was handing a cheque over to a charity. In the afternoon, I was doing a live gig on Northumberland Street. It was kind of November time, obviously, but remembrance. And it was some Christmas light switch on or something. And then in the evening, I'm doing the show. Saturday, it was a Rocky thing. So I couldn't avoid people. I'm there, right in front of hundreds of Northumberland Street, about 5,000-6,000 people. So every day from then on, for 9 more days, I say IRA. 9 days we're going to kill him. 8 days, always from phone boxes, because the police did check them out, and there were phone boxes around the city. 7 days, 5 days, 4 days, 3 days. Tomorrow, guys, tomorrow. So I was a tad concerned. It's kind of an understatement.
Terrified.
And I said to the police, what are you going to do? And they said, well, if we can get you to the radio station, the show doesn't end till 2 o'clock the next day. So technically, you're not at risk anymore. Technically. So I got through the check, handed it over, shook hands, went to see, it was hospice, went to see the patients and said hi and give them a few bits and pieces. Did the light switch on, about 6 o'clock. Got back to the radio station for about 10, obviously 4:10 because I started. Did the show. The police said, we've got you covered. I said, great. To get me covered was, at 10 minutes past 2 before I left the building to go to my car, a Panda car drove into the car park, went around the island in the middle and drove out. So I've got to get in the car, tentatively, get in my car. Now at the time, the central bypass hadn't been built with the metro centre. To get to where I lived at the time, I had to go through town. So I went through town. As soon as I got on the main road, 2 cars started following me.
Oh my God.
Old cars, not police cars. At first I thought, plain clothes. They were tatty, like they were stolen cars. Full of people. So I thought, I can't go home. Obviously, I can't go home because I had family there. So I thought, I had a nice car at the time, it was fast. So I got on the A1, and if the police stopped me, I thought, perfect. So up the motorway, and I knew I couldn't go home, so I drove to Cramlington Police Station because I'd done some charity something with the police station once before, so I knew where it was. Screeched outside of the police station, slammed the door, ran in, old sergeant behind the desk. Imagine you're the old police sergeant. I'm being chased by 2 cars full of the IRA. Of course you are, son. No, sit down. And I said, well, they're outside. And he said, he walked to the door and the 2 cars were outside, windows down. I'm behind the old policeman. No kind of guardian. He big lad. And they shouted, Irish voice, Robson, you've been fucking warned. And then they drove off. I stayed in the police station for about 4 hours to make sure. Got in the car, went home. 2 days later, I got a Christmas card from the IRA. Still got it somewhere in storage. It's a picture of a man in a ski mask holding a Kalashnikov above his head. They print their own Christmas card. Or they did. I mean, what? And inside it was written in Gaelic. And I had to get somebody from Newcastle University to translate it. And it said, you have been warned, never attack the IRA. And it'd been signed by some random.
God.
I didn't die, which is a plus. And around that time, the police said they'll never attack anybody in the media. But they did that.
That's absolutely
And I was quiet
terrifying.
about the IRA for about a week and a half. And then I slowly, because you can't, they were killing people. You can't just suddenly then say, well, IRA are canny now, aren't they? You can't do it. you can't do that. You've got to be.
That's ballsy, though. I mean, I wouldn't go out in public. I would be in hiding. I mean, I think I would have just hid.
Yeah,
which
I've
means that
promised
they've
people
won.
that I'd be there, so you.
They would have won exactly.
But you see, it's that exactly the thing. It's the same principle, no matter how big or small the challenge. And when you say, I have difficulty being seen and come on camera, and before this chat you were saying how difficult it'd been, you're a natural. You just talk to people. Just talk to people. It's not complicated. And I know you think to do this you've got to be, you don't. You don't. Just talk to people. Because that's the key. The key isn't talk at people. Talk to them. Then they'll respond. And they always respond. Because you talk to them.
And that there is, I think, just the best advice ever, isn't it?
It is. Talk and listen.
Talk and listen.
My wife would say I don't. And that has proven a problem. On my 5th wife, I've got to, everybody's got to have a hobby. But you have to rejig. And the thing that you also must be careful of, and this is genuine, in your home life, you're not better, you're not cleverer, you're not more talented. You have different talents to the people around you. And it's easy to get sucked into, that moment in Saturday Night Fever when John Travolta's walking and he's just put on his black underpants and it's Staying Alive's on.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get this kind of, I'm in the public eye, so I'm now this thing, and it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. First day that I did a talk show, my way again, I went home genuinely driving the car through estates to get onto the A1. I expected everybody's lights to be on because that was great. That show was amazing. Where is everybody? Why aren't they all out waving flags? Why aren't they cheering and applauding the car? Because I'm just this speck next to a million other radio shows, next to a million television shows, next to every movie, next to every bar that's got the football on. And I've tried to make my way into different people's existence. I did the football at St James's Park for 7 years when they were at their most successful, the Entertainers. Did that. Reached out there. Did pantomime. Reached out there. wrote pantomime and put it on myself.
Mm.
I've tried to get into as many of those bucket list things as you possibly could, and I've enjoyed my time. My time is all but over. It is, and I don't. The saddest part of it, and I can't explain it, is I'm not. When I finished, I was immensely proud of all these things that I'd done, and I'd talked people down off the Tyne Bridge. I'd sent a terminally ill child to Disney World. I'd done a lot of things that you could go, nobody can criticise that. At least I got that right. And now I feel tragically worthless, truly. And there's no getting around that. I was the glue in a lot of lives. When I finished, the worst thing for me was mentally challenged people. The one thing that they need in their lives is consistency. And they listen to me. And I was the only radio talk show anywhere that I'm aware of that would allow somebody with mental issues on the show. We had one that came on every week and wanted to sing. Dip your bread. Let it loose. And some people laughed at him, that didn't matter. Other people thought he was an absolute hero. I met him and he had the longest nasal hair that I've ever seen of any human. It was two sweeping brushes. It wasn't a mustache. It was coming from his nose. It was. But bottom line again is that he was a lovely guy. Mm-hmm. But be inclusive to everyone. But I was that glue, and suddenly, for all of those people that relied on me, I couldn't be there for them anymore. And there's nothing I could do about it.
Yeah. And
you hear people say, I mean, just little things we did on night hours. If somebody, I need a heater, my heating system's broke. I could get them a heater just by going on air. Says, anyway, a spare heater? I've got one. Says, any taxi driver in the area can pick it up. I'll do it. And I had this little army of people that would do anything. On one occasion, a woman was being chased out of her house by a gang of thugs in Cowgate. And I said, can anybody go up there to sort those buggers out? Half a dozen people. Double glazing van. Half a dozen taxi drivers all went up, got her out, got her in the car, got her away. That's power. I've got somebody suicidal. They've opened the gas and they've put candles on the floor and they've covered the floor with petrol. And it's on me to sort that out. Mm-hmm. I did. I managed to get some people there. I managed to talk them down. I said, put the candle out. Managed to do that. And the police said that if the guy if it had gone off, it would have took off the street with it.
There was also quite a lot on you emotionally, though, wasn't there?
Yeah, but halfway through, there was a company down, I think it was called Body Positive, it might have been called. They were on the quayside and they monitored, like, you're fat, you've got 6% extra fat. They did all that kind of stuff. And they wanted to come in the studio and check me out. And there was one, I'd taken 2 children off somebody. A woman had rang in and she believed that her 2 little girls were being raped by the husband, by her partner. But the partner had just won custody in court. So she'd grabbed the kids and disappeared with them. So the police were looking for them. Mm. And I said, well, give them to me. And I'll not give them back until they go to hospital. Mm-hmm. Oh, my husband will never allow that to happen. Well, I'll not give them back to the police unless that happens. So she brought her kids to me and I had her kids for a day and a half. And the police came and they said, look, Alan, we're going to have to take them or we're going to have to take you. I said, well, you have to take me because I'm not leaving these bairns. The bairns have been attacked, taken them to the hospital, get them sorted out. Mm-hmm. And the police finally said, well, it's no harm. If anybody is not willing for that to happen, there's a question mark. Because I had a good relationship with the police back then. Yeah. They took him to the hospital. They've both been abused. The man's still in prison.
Oh my
And the women, or the lady who was with her best friend on the run, Thelma and Louise, they collected the children from me, give us a cuddle, happy days. And I was monitored up during one of those shows. And during this time, when there was literally 2 police officers waiting to come and see me. So to say there wasn't stresses, and I was steady, it was as it was if there was nothing happening.
Wow.
Don't know whether that's a gift or I'm too stupid to register or whatever. But
I think it's just you're a psychopath. I think that's
I've been described as such. And the thing is, when you do the dumb stuff, and I've done a lot of dumb stuff. I once travelled the length of Newcastle through the sewers. And I ended up having small flies living up my nose.
Why did you do that?
Well, because I didn't know that anybody had ever done it. So I thought, first of all, I asked the council, is it possible? Yes, it is. Where do you go in? Baker. Where do you come out? Just past the hill next to the Centre for Life, kind of at the top of that hill. And that's the whole of Newcastle. Fantastic. So I went down with Harry. Harry looked out at me and took me the length and got me out the other side.
How long did it take you?
Oh, about 4.5 hours. Oh. It's not pleasant down there. There's shit down there. There is a lot of shit down there. And there's a lot of cockroaches and rats. And there's a lot of cobwebs. And you come out like you've been on a tour with Indiana Jones. But the thing
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, you don't want the image. But the thing that I noticed was literally a week afterwards, there was small white flies flying out your nose. And they were the ones that I picked up in the tunnel. I know that because I was firing that. I call it a snotter. You know, when somebody does, and let's it all go. I didn't have a choice. I was like, and there was all kinds.
But there have been laying eggs up there.
What do you do? Toothbrush? You know, what do you do? But I did a lot of dumb stuff. A lot of dumb stuff. I did some stuff that I consider that was cool. Stuff I've done with like pop stars and rock stars, and you meet a lot of your heroes, which is great. Met Margaret Thatcher, told her a few home truths.
Oh, I bet you did.
She told me a lot more. God, she made me feel like this small. I made her feel really small. And I was saying, because I was just being honest. You know, in these mining villages, it was mining, so you do have to understand. And she says, I do understand, but the country comes first. And by the time I'd finished, I'd been totally chinned. I had been destroyed. And to her credit, I think she was amazing because I probably deserved it.
And I guess you've got to be able to destroy somebody to be in that sort of power. You know, no matter what they come back at you with, you've got to be able to. I was so certain I had her nailed. Yeah. And I gave her 6 note. I really delivered. And the people here hate you. And it was like, well, that's maybe. And she just. Wow. And I then interviewed Arthur Scargill from the other side, because Devil's Advocate. And I did destroy him, which told me there and then, in the middle of the strike, Thatcher will win. Yeah. Because I can't beat her, and I couldn't. And ordinary people have defeated me on the radio, and all you've got to do is say, really enjoyed your call. Didn't agree with everything you said, really enjoyed it. You've got a very strong argument, and I think you beat me. Own up. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. There's always going to be better and worse people than you. You've got to be able to. And if you have principles at all, don't try and find a halfway. Don't compromise. If you've got a principle, stick to it. I got a chance to interview Charles, the King, when he was Prince Charles. And they gave me a script. They sent me this script saying, write down here all the questions you're going to ask. And I didn't. I wrote at the bottom, I said, I treat everybody the same. If I have a plumber on the show, I don't give him a list of the questions first, because you find out an awful lot more about people when you just freestyle and you ask them what comes up naturally in the conversation.
And they sent me a thing back saying, unless you give me a list of the questions and you don't change from that list, you'll not be able to interview him.
Oh.
So I said, all right. Would have been a coup, I suppose, because the Royals don't give a lot of interviews anyway, not one-to-ones. But if you wouldn't show a plumber, a shop assistant, that degree of courtesy, why would you do it?
Yeah.
I don't buy into the... Now, they were kind enough to give me an MBE. Very nice.
Yes.
So
we can't, because we have to mention this. We have to.
Well, not really. I'm mentioning it only because for about a fortnight I couldn't criticise the Queen. Because she was canny. And she gave us... And you see, I used that trip to do something that is not part of royal... At the time, the North East was the car crime capital of Britain. And everybody's car was getting taken or done. It was an awful time. And I came up with this list. This is what we really need to do in the North East. It's going to take some money. Councillors need to do X and Y and Z. And we know who the car criminals are. We've got their names. The police know who they are. And we need to clamp down on them. And this is how you can... And I created this document. And this is again where being canny, not using the Scottish word canny. Canny means kind of deeply considering, but the Geordie word canny, people liking you, came good because I walked out and I dug out this big letter for the Queen, because you've only got like a couple of minutes and you shake hands, and she says, Alan, I'm a first time caller and I'm very nervous. She didn't say that. But so you have a brief chat. How's your bumper spots, Your Majesty? And I was about to give it, and this baldy guy starts waving. He goes, because they told me not to do it, but Geordie. So he's waving. And he goes from the side. I'm just about nearly there. So I put it back in my pocket. I go up and do the nice polite thing, and she puts the thing on me. And I go out, and it's a bloke from Newburn who was one of the Queen's equerries. He's from Newburn. Alan, man, what were you thinking? How are here? So he took me round the back, and he said, if you've got out for Her Majesty, come over here. Billy sort you out. And Billy was a bloke from Birmingham. And I said, look, there's car crime. And he says, oh, that's not what this is all about. Just take your medal and bugger off. Shook his hand. I've met him twice since. You're just casually just seen him about. And you try, and by being canny, I got the chance to get that document into the hands of the very person that needed to get it into the hands of a minister.
Yeah.
That was great. So
that's why I wanted to bring up the MBA, because of the fact that the reason that you got it was so different from so many others. It was because you were being you, and you were canny, and you listened to the people, and you gave them what they wanted, and you cared, and all of those things.
Think about what it means. And this is being really cold. Receiving an award, forget the MBE, because it doesn't change, it doesn't mean anything. It's a huge honour, and I'm not downplaying it. Any award is a huge honour, and I've been lucky enough to get a lot. And what it means is you then have to pay to travel somewhere, stay overnight, spend more money than you really should, to go to a place where they give you something that is of literally no intrinsic value, and you put it in a cupboard. Doesn't pay your mortgage, doesn't get you more work.
Do they not even put you up somewhere?
No, everybody goes down, does the thing, and we're all honoured to do it. And I was honoured to do it. And you mix with, I nearly said you're Jimmy Savile's, but because the people that have been awarded, there's no guarantee. But you mix with all the rich and the famous, and that's nice. And then you go on your way. And does it mean anything in the great scheme of things? It's lovely, but no, it doesn't. And it's nice that somebody thought the work you did was good. That's good. But it's holding on to your principles. My principle was, if I go down there, I'll be able to put this in the hands of somebody to make some good. Did it change anything? You never get to find out. So if somebody come and said, and the reason car crime is down 45%, it's Alan, because he gave this letter to the Queen. You're never going to find out. You don't know whether, but at least you know that if you go there and you're with people that can change lives, that you try and do it.
And you've stuck so true to your values, though. You've held by them through thick and thin. You've not, no matter, regardless of the shit that you've been given and dished along the way, you've stayed true to everything.
In a way, and you'll find this, the more of this that you do, and you will obviously do a lot more of this. If your starting point is real, you can't suddenly then not be real. You're real. You're normal. I don't mean that in any kind of derogatory term. You're a natural speaker. You don't have an issue. The issue's in your head, and the more you do, the more you realise that it's the only place it is. Because the perception to people seeing you is that you're bright, you're intelligent, you're sparkly, you've got a bit of something that people will want to listen to. That's great. I'm gonna
put that on repeat and listen to it every morning.
But that's the reality. And the thing is, and anybody that knows me, if you weren't very good at it, I would have told you what you were doing wrong. And I would. One of my best friends, and I'm not going to name this guy at all, once applied for a job working on my team. And he came in and he stunk. I mean, clear a room stink. And everybody around me was like, oh, he's a really nice lad. He's a lovely man. He's a genuine, kind, decent man. And I said, first thing I shook his hand and I said, you're a bit sweaty. And he said, oh yeah, I've been nervous. I said, nervous or not, you've got a hygiene problem. There used to be an advert in the 60s when I was a little boy. Would you tell your best friend if he was smelly? Because people were smelly then, in a way we're not smelly today, or hopefully not. And I just told him, I said, look, you stink. It's not an easy conversation, but it's honest. And he said, look, you really smell. And I said, just stay there a second. I went and I did a little bit of checking up. And I said, you like super, super strong deodorants. And I said, try some of these products. There's also a lot of people's ordinary smell can come from diet and what you're eating, and it comes through your pores. So I would recommend that you try and stay off this, stay off that. And here's a couple of super strong deodorants. Last time I saw him, and to be honest, he was working with us recently, no smell at all. It's benefited him in his whole life. But everybody else will just be saying, just and they wouldn't say anything. Tell people the truth.
I have to tell you something because I have to embarrass my friend.
Do it.
And what's a best mate if you can't embarrass the shit out of them?
Done.
I've been taking the piss out of my friend Sarah for about 25 years because you know how you'd get anonymous who would call up a lot. So Sarah had said to me when we were younger, who is this anonymous guy who always rings up?
Well, we seem to have a different voice.
And I've took the piss out of her for probably over 25 years. And I said, you're never going to believe who I'm speaking to, Alan Robson. And I said, you know what I'm going to tell him? She said, you can dare. And I'm going to.
What we'll do is, before I leave today, get your mobile phone out and I'll do, hello, I'm anonymous. Let's
Can
do
we
that.
please? That is just, oh my God.
No
this is the best day of my life.
I've done some, somebody will say to me, will you say hello to me mother? And I'll say, and I learned this indirectly from Dame Edna Everidge.
Oh,
Dame Edna.
love.
Tremendous. She was on the City Hall stage once and she rang me live in front of the audience. And she does prep the way that I do prep. She's super thorough. And before she rang me up, she contacted whichever number wife it was at the time. She'd got my phone number, she contacted my wife, found out what I did, what I was bad at, what I ate for my supper. I mean, super minutiae. I used to always have a cheese toastie when I got home. Because it was quick to, just quick to make, stick a bit of cheese under the grill. And I get this phone call that says, "Hello, Paul," the whole thing. And it's like, but I'm broadcast to the City Hall, which is amazing. And she must have been doing it, I presume, to like somebody that was well known locally everywhere she went. Because you wouldn't just do that as a one-off, I wouldn't think. But anyway, so I realised I wasn't all that important to her. She wouldn't know who I was. But she'd done her research, and she's saying things like, "When you get home, you got to have a cheese toastie." And you're kind of going, "What's happening?" And she she ripped me to pieces. But it's find out. So people sometimes say, "Well, you talk to me, mum." I'll say, "Well, first of all, tell me about her." And you get to know all the stuff.
Yeah.
And you can do this little thing on the telephone where you go, "Hello, mother. How's your sore leg? Does it look minging?" Everybody says it looks disgusting. But that's much funnier than just saying hello, which everybody else would do. So I always say preparation is the thing. I mentioned before, my show was done hours before I went on air. And about 8:30 before I went live, I'd gather me people together. We'd always sit and we'd have a bite to eat, have a laugh, have a joke, have a cuddle, crack on.
Yeah.
And it was a proper, let's go and meet the rest of the family kind of vibe. It's what I aim for. And I think we achieved that.
Well, my whole household forever listened to you every single night without fail. I was absolutely that person that was knackered for school every morning. Me and my friend Sarah have rang up several times. I had your signed picture above my bed.
Bless.
And my mum as well. I rang my mum and said, speaking to Alan Robson, she was no, I'm going to have to ring and tell everybody.
The amount of people over the years that it started. I listened to you in bed with a transistor.
Yeah.
After the war, when Victoria died, I listened to a transistor radio, and I would wake up and it would all be around. And then move on 2 decades. I listen to you on my Walkman, and when I wake up in the morning, all the chords are in my throat. And other people, I try to sleep with my big headphones on, and they keep falling off. So waking up. One of the most common things, other than I got first-time cholera an awful lot, but and owls. Jeez, if ever you wanted owls, come to me. I would get probably about 40 owls a week.
Really?
And I got one that was it was as tall as this wall, and it was about 6 feet wide, and somebody had hammered nails into a board and then put wire around them, like millions of a big owl. And I bloody hated it. But because somebody had gone to all that trouble, you couldn't give it away. So I put it in the garage. And every time I went in to get the car, you'd click it, and your jeans would be... I did eventually set fire to it. But loads of people gave me owls and stuff. And somebody from your grandmother's time, a singer called Ronnie Hilton, the one song you'll know that he had loads of hits. My mother's favourite singer. He had one song, "A Mouse Lived in a Windmill in Old Amsterdam." That was Ronnie Hilton. And that was his biggest hit. And everywhere he went, people gave him mice and windmills. And I interviewed him on a Time Tease chat show that I had. And on the table, they put a windmill and a mouse, thinking, we're really clever here. He used the F word, and he said, "I am sick of windmills and mice." I had 47 hits in the British charts, and everywhere I go. And at the end of the interview, in front of the audience, I said, "Do you want to knack them?" And he went, "Yes, I bloody do." And he picked it up on the floor. It was really actually quite funny. I wish it had been on screen because it was funnier than the interview, I'll tell you.
But at the same time, you know, when people whinge about, sorry, I'm calling him a whinge, but
No,
when people
I
whinge
whinge.
about having...
That's kindness, and you shouldn't. And it's
Yes,
wrong.
Exactly. You know, when
at
people
every
say,
level.
I refuse to play, I'm sick of playing those songs. I'm gonna do a gig, but I'm not playing any of the oldies.
No, you do
I'm
what
sick
they
of
want.
playing them.
Do what
but
people
hold
want.
on, but exactly, why?
Do what people want. If somebody loves you, and it is a love thing, because you don't give somebody something for nothing if you don't care for them. If they give me something, I would keep it. And I had thousands of owls, badges and stickers and cuddly this and plaques, and somebody even made me my headstone. Seriously. It's the one that's on next to the Delaval Arms. There's the Delaval Arms directly across the road. There's a Chinese, and there's a stonemason that makes graves, and they do Newcastle United graves, and your coffin is a Ferrari, and all this kind of stuff. And somebody asked me to pop in, so I popped in, and they said, I've got something for you. And seeing your own grave is not great.
No.
It's not great.
Well, could you imagine if your audience had heard you saying, I'm fucking sick of owls. Anyone else gives me...
Oh, they'd be mortified because
Yes.
somebody would have knitted me one, and it took me 6
Yes.
weeks.
They'd be sitting knitting, listening to you whilst you hear
Well, they
you
sent
say
me a
that.
little knitted Allen. There was a little knitted Allen with a sword, flashing blade kind of thing. I've had a lot of love over the years, and I know I run myself down to say that I feel worthless, because I do. And it doesn't matter no matter what anybody says, how many people listened. It doesn't change the fact of where I am right now. That's my weight to carry, and that's fine. Everybody has some weight, and it's not the worst weight in the world. I've lived a good life, made a decent living, and I'm now in a place where it's a struggle, a bit of a struggle. And I mean, you can't make it. You shouldn't lie about it. That's the truth. Will I starve? Never. Will I always work? I'll have to. Will I find a way? Absolutely. And the stuff that I'm doing now is some of the best work I've ever done.
That's what I want.
But to the smallest audience.
Yes. Where can we find you?
Well, I do.
What are you doing now?
I have a website called robsonsworld.com, and on there are a lot of my greatest shows. Just my greatest shows are on there. And every week we add a couple of extra shows. I travel around to various places telling you ghosts, myths, legends, funny stories, comedy songs. I did one show that was the funniest songs of all time from like the last 40 years, and it's hilarious because I now have the freedom. A lot of the stuff that I've released, I had already recorded, but the radio station wouldn't let me play it.
Ah, okay.
Because, we don't want to get into that. It's that control thing again, talking about the conspiracy theory. I do a show on AIDS and HIV. You can't put that out. That'll cost too much. So now I can. And if people like it, that's great. If they don't like it, that's tough potatoes.
Yeah.
But it's some of the best stuff I've ever done. And it is quality. I also do ghost hunts where you go out under the name of the Ghost Historian, where I go to a place and it's an excuse to tell. It started off being, it's all ghosts. Ghosts are only interesting how they got to be ghosts in the first place. So you tell the history, and I love the history.
And it's really interesting because I've been listening to them, and it's super interesting.
Juicy stuff.
Yeah.
And you go to a place that's usually not too far away from where you live.
Yeah.
If you can get in a car, you can go and see all of this anytime. Some people take the show and listen to it and walk the same path, and that's pretty cool.
That's a good idea.
But I've got the smallest audience in my life because I've gone from literally millions to thousands, and that's a leap, and it's harder for you to cope with. And you can't be Johnny Posh Trousers anymore. You can feel like and I did when I was on radio. I did feel like I had this. Not so much on Greatest Hits radio. Not going to criticise it. Not so much there. But when I was doing my thing, unfettered, nobody telling me what I could say or do, that's unheard of.
Yes.
I mean, it's unheard of. But because I had the numbers, a lot of people at the station say they were frightened of me because I was loud and I would if they told me to do something I didn't want to do. I'd give them all the good reasons, and I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And some people will say, just let him get on. Just let him do what he's doing. Where is he next week? Barbados. He's doing the show from how? And I'd sort it out. I'd find a way. You hit a tourist board. There's a couple of companies that do it, and you say, I want to go. And they say, oh, okay. Ask, do things that people wouldn't expect. Do stuff that is unorthodox, different, and challenging. It's harder, though, for anybody in broadcasting unless you do your own thing. If you're working for people, everybody's far too scared of being sued.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. So the BBC is super safe. All the ITV networks, all the radio stations. We can't be sued because we're playing the same stuff over and over and over and over and over and over. And we're not saying anything other than, oh, the weather's nice. The roads are quite busy. Here's the next song.
Yeah.
I couldn't live in that world. I've been offered the chance by a local beeb to do some stuff. And I know that if I did it, I would loathe it. And my time in radio was amazing. It was magnificent. It was the glory days of the medium. And I got away with far more than anybody had the right to get away with.
Definitely.
So I'll take that and move on to whatever the next thing is. It's true.
Alan, I'm a first-time podcaster. And
if anything makes me likely to snap. No, it's funny because, you know, just and I know you're rapping. The thing that, talking about things that irritate me, there's two things. One's Alan Shearer.
Oh, you can't say that.
No. He knows. I've told him.
I like you, Alan.
I love Alan Shearer. No. And a certain window company that shall remain nameless because I'm still working with them.
Still that same one?
Well, they've just come back into my life.
Really?
So I'm doing them on telly and radio. Anyway, so I'm not going to mention them, but these two things.
We know anyway, though.
I did close to half a century on radio, television. I had 2 weekly newspaper columns for 11 years. I did the football for 7 years. I did pantos for 5 years. I've done probably 30,000 live gigs in the patch. And somebody will come up to me and they'll go, such and such windows.
Oh, no.
And you'd go, yeah, that's right. But the worst one is, multiply that by 30. And when Alan Shearer signed for Newcastle, I brought him out to meet the fans. And there's a little clip of me going, ladies and gentlemen, Alan Shearer. Now, the true story behind that is it was bucketing. And they wanted a lovely day so they could film the hero coming to St. James's Park. So they said, Alan, can you do half an hour? Just build up the crowd so we can bring Alan Shearer out. I said, no bother. So I built up the crowd for half an hour and it started to rain. And they said, we're going to wait till the rain stops. Can you do another half an hour? Now, I didn't have any music. I'm just talking to these thousands of people. Not giving anything away. Nothing to hold them. Just talking to them and trying to make them laugh and chatting. And, you know, like mini interviews with the crowd and whatever. What do you think of it? It's pissing down. My hair, beautifully coiffured. I've even got a little top bunch. But anyway, so my hair at the time was long. And anyway, they come out again. Can you do another half hour? The rain stands. And we've been told probably at maximum an hour. Now, I've done an hour without anything to say. I'd prepped half an hour. I'd prepped about 45 minutes. Because just in case, I hadn't prepped 3.5 hours later, 3.5 hours in front of this crowd, soaked to the skin, dripping, not looking my best. Ladies and gentlemen, at last, I didn't say at last, but ladies and gentlemen, now's the moment you've all been waiting for. Alan Shearer! And so Alan Shearer comes out, shakes my hand. I mean, he knows all of this and we've talked about it and such. And he's been on shows taking the mickey out of me about this. So he knows. where I go to places, people go, and you go, you're the Alan Shearer, kind of.
Oh.
That's all. That certain group, even though I hosted the ground for 7 odd years, every game, you're the one that brought Alan Shearer. So that's irritating. That's my smashing the windmill and stamping on the mouse. And Alan knows it. He knows it very well. But
Hey.
yeah. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
But you're in a great position because you're free to do your thing.
Yes.
I wasn't.
Don't
when I
have to
started.
follow any rules.
You've got to. I was learning how to find rules to break,
Yes.
and it was harder to start in a situation like this. I think you've got every chance. So take it the whole way. That journey,
Yes.
not the sexual journey, the other journey. Don't make the journey unless you're going to go the whole way.
I love that. Okay. Right.
No bother.
Deal. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alan Robson, proper legend.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Got a bit
so
heavy in
much.
places. Sorry, everybody.